Today, we're going to crack open an ancient legal text to solve a puzzle about trust that honestly feels like it could have been written yesterday. Think of it like a detective story, where our biggest clue comes from an argument that's 2,000 years old. So let's just dive right in.
At the very heart of this whole investigation is this one simple question. I mean, it seems straightforward, right? But as we're about to find out, the answer is, well, it's anything but.
All right, so our case opens up with a text from the Talmud, which is the central text of Rabbinic Judaism, when right off the bat we get hit with a ruling that seems to make absolutely zero sense.
Okay, get this. The sageist Rava says that if a person is known to break kosher law by eating forbidden meat, you can trust them to slaughter an animal for you according to kosher law. It's a complete paradox. Why on earth would you trust someone to follow a rule they are known to break? This is the mystery we have to solve.
So to crack this case, we have to get inside the head of the transgressor. See, Rava isn't just making some dry legal ruling. He's actually making a really profound statement about human psychology.
First things first, let's get our terms straight. The subject of our case is a mumar, a transgressor. Now, this isn't somebody who just makes an honest mistake. No, this is someone who knowingly and habitually breaks a specific law. Our mumar, for example, eats unslaughtered meat on the regular. And this, right here, reveals Rava's core logic. He argues that nobody, not even a rule breaker, goes out of their way to do something wrong when the right way is just as easy. I mean, think about it. Why would this person intentionally mess up the slaughter just to create forbidden meat when they could just as easily do it correctly and get permitted meat? It makes no rational sense. They wouldn't take the hard, forbidden path for no reason.
Now, this psychological theory is pretty fascinating, but is it just a theory? In a legal system, you need hard evidence, you need precedent. So the Talmud does what any good detective would do. It starts looking for other cases to see if this idea actually holds up.
And that brings us to our first piece of corroborating evidence, a case file that involves the laws of Passover.
So during Passover, it's forbidden to own any leavened bread, like a regular loaf. The Talmud talks about these transgressors who don't get rid of their bread before the holiday. But the law says that right after the holiday ends, we can assume their bread is permitted. Why? Because it's known that they actively go and exchange their now forbidden bread for permitted bread. They actually seek out the permitted option.
So the really crucial point here is this logical leap. If these transgressors take extra steps just to get permitted bread, and that's for a less severe law, one made by rabbis, then it's almost certain they would prefer the easy, permitted path when the stakes are higher, with a more severe law straight from the Torah, like kosher slaughter. The evidence is definitely starting to build in Rava's favor.
Okay, Rava's case is looking stronger, but there's more evidence to look at. The Talmud brings up another ancient text, a Baraita, that gives us what is basically a police lineup of potential suspects.
This text says that pretty much everyone is qualified to perform a kosher slaughter, and it lists a few really surprising examples. And that last phrase, even a Jewish transgressor, that looks like the smoking gun that proves Rava's entire point. But to be sure, we have to analyze everyone in the lineup.
So the big question is, who exactly is this Jewish transgressor? The identity of this final suspect? That's the key to closing this whole case. So let's break down the lineup one by one.
First up, the uncircumcised man. Now, the Talmud makes it clear this isn't someone with a medical issue. This is a person who willfully breaks the law of circumcision. But here's the principle it establishes. Just because he breaks one specific commandment doesn't mean we assume he breaks all of them. His transgression is specific, so we can trust him in other areas, like slaughter.
Okay, so if the uncircumcised man covers transgressions in other areas, then our final suspect, the Jewish transgressor, must be talking about someone who transgresses in the very same area, someone who eats unslaughtered meat. And just like that, it looks like we have our smoking gun, direct confirmation of Rava's wild, counterintuitive ruling. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
Just when we think we've got it all figured out, the Talmud throws in a major twist, a completely new psychological insight that just turns our entire investigation on its head.
And here it is, the game-changing line. For someone who is habituated to a specific sin, the line between what's forbidden and what's permitted, it starts to get blurry. The act becomes so routine that it just doesn't feel wrong anymore. It feels, well, permitted.
Wow, I mean, this is a stunning reversal. The entire psychological principle we started with, that no one would choose the forbidden path over the easy, permitted one, is completely negated by habit. If the forbidden act no longer feels forbidden, the person has zero incentive to be careful. So the very person we thought we could trust is actually the one we absolutely cannot.
This leaves us with a huge problem. We've just disqualified our prime suspect. So if the Jewish transgressor in that lineup isn't the person who eats unslaughtered meat, then who is it?
Okay, we've had the paradox, the evidence, and that mind-bending twist. Now it's time for the final verdict, where the Talmud re-examines all the evidence and closes this case for good. The final really nuanced conclusion is this. The person who habitually eats unslaughtered meat? Absolutely not. They can't be trusted, because habit has totally desensitized them. But someone who transgresses another law, like the uncircumcised man, yes, because transgression isn't universal. And so, that Jewish transgressor in the lineup must be someone who commits a different, but very serious transgression. The Talmud suggests it refers to an idol worshiper. Their specific sin, while severe, doesn't actually relate to kosher laws, so we don't assume they'd be careless in that area.
So the key takeaway here is that trust isn't just a simple yes or no label. The Talmud's approach is incredibly sophisticated. It demands a really deep understanding of human psychology, and it recognizes that habit can fundamentally change how we see right and wrong, and that a person's character is never just one thing.
And this ancient case leaves us with a profoundly modern question, doesn't it? In our own lives, when we see people, or even ourselves, get accustomed to bending the rules, how do we navigate trust? It's a puzzle that is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Thanks for joining us.